there's been a big marathon voting session going on, and they're called confidence votes. And basically the Liberals are trying to make political hay by saying that the Conservatives are voting against everything, and then they'll come, they're voting against kids having food to eat. They're voting against people not being killed, whatever, all this crazy hyperbolic stuff. But what is actually going on? It's called the confidence voting. But why don't you explain that for everyone so they understand it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the government only exists in power at the pleasure of its peers, right? So when you force a confidence vote, if the Conservatives had won any of those confidence votes, we'd be heading for an election, which is kind of the point of doing them. It's a tool that's been used by all parties. It's funny watching the NDP lose their mind over it. In 2012, they did the exact same thing. I went back and watched some of that. But basically what they do is they're taking the budgetary bill that they're studying right now, and they force a vote on every single line item in it, and then they vote against it. And I mean, I guess technically speaking, you could say they're voting against those items, but that's not the point of it. They know that it's going to pass because it's got the support of the House. But what it's doing is trying to force a vote of confidence against the Liberal government. So they're not voting against the items or voting against the government. And a lot of people don't understand that. Liberal MPs and NDP MPs have been making these ridiculous tweets with like a list of things, like you said, food for children, military, whatever, all these issues that, of course, people care about, and saying that, the evil, mean Conservatives are voting against them. And it's interesting, again, on CFRA, they were doing a panel with 𝐌𝐞𝐫𝐿𝐴 on there, and they were talking about it. And this one kind of really left-leaning panelist, who normally I roll my eyes when I listen to them, even said, like it's pretty disingenuous and it's almost sickening to listen to, because those Liberal and NDP MPs know exactly what the Conservatives were doing, using that tool of forcing all those confidence votes. And it's not a matter of voting against those line items. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's some polling due today, I think, out of Abacus. David 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐡 tweeted about it. We'll see if that damaged the Conservatives at all. I'm not sure if people really understand the nuances of using those types of confidence vote tools in the House, what it really means. So I guess we'll see. Either way, I know the Liberals are either, assuming you're stupid or hoping that you are. But yeah, it's not what they pretended to be.
Well, and the Liberals know full well what's going on. Like, they do this stuff all the time themselves.
Yes.
And it's, so when you sort of know what's happening and then you listen to the messaging, like the completely histrionic, screaming it from the, from the top of the mountain, like the Conservatives are victimizing children. Like, it's so, it's so disingenuous. It's so dishonest that, and especially Karina Gould, right? She's out front. She's like, just ready to just break down, have a nervous breakdown about what, how evil the Conservatives, and knowing full well what's going on. I really do wonder how we got to this point in Canadian society, like in the political landscape, how we got to this point. It really is terribly ugly.
It's like fashionable now to just, walk in front of the news cameras during the middle of a scrum and just like light your hair on fire, Like, I don't know. It's total theater.
The question is not, why does Justin Trudeau suddenly not love his country? Because the question is ridiculous. I live this country in my bones every breath I take, and I'm not going to stand here and somehow defend that I actually do love Canada, because we know I love Canada. And
it's a problem, because there are real Canadians having real struggles right now. And that was kind of the point is, of course, Poilievre's trying to take down the government. Of course, he wants an election because he wants to turn the ship around.
Well, because the Liberals and their co-conspirators at the NDP, the Bloc, and the Greens, they've destroyed the economy.
Yeah.
They've caused division in our society unlike anything we've ever seen before, ever in the history of the country. Maybe like in World War I or II. You know what I mean? Like, just like, it's unprecedented, the damage that they've done. And they are completely fine. Like the Karina Goulds and the Mark Hollands and the rest of these people, they're completely fine to manipulate the hell out of Canadians just so that they can keep stay in control, stay in power.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're desperate too. It's interesting. If you go look at the CCFR Twitter and Facebook, there's a really neat post that's there where it's taken individual, like all these, kind of screeching liberals and taken their Canada 338 polling numbers. And it's showing how many of them. Karina Gould is absolutely going to lose her seat. So, of course, she is desperate. She'll do or say anything to stop, Canada from going into an election, because she'll be unemployed afterwards, right?
But but that's she'll do or say anything like that's, but that's wrong. That's morally wrong, right? And it's I think you get so caught up in politics, you forget that. You're like, well, they're playing the game like everybody else, and you see conservatives do it from time to time, just not as anywhere near as often or as extreme. Because people think that, because we're talking about the CPC and pinning all our hopes on them, it's like, this is just a practical matter for us. It's like, well, this is the only way that you can save your guns in our system, is to get a friendly government, or one that is the friendliest out of what your options are, one that can actually form government. And, we're not, we don't donate to the CPC. We don't carry water for them. We're not shills for them. This is our only option as gun owners to get some of this stuff back. So we have to help them to some degree. But I'm not blind to bad behavior, no matter what party is. But I keep a really close watch on all that stuff. And I don't see conservatives do it anywhere near to the level. It's almost like the conservatives are the way that politics were done 20 years ago. Where it's like, you'll highlight some shortcomings of your opponent, or you'll make sure that people know, all the gritty details, which would lead them to think maybe that something is worse than it is, like just the nuanced stuff. But the way that the Liberals and the NDP conduct themselves is, and the Bloc too, by the way, is beyond atrocious. Like it is galaxies different than the way the conservatives are. So anyway, it's just really wild to watch when you pay attention.
Well, the messaging out of the Liberals too, it's like, liberal, choose forward. The conservatives will take us back. And I'm like, back to what?
Safer
sounds good
streets,
to me. Being able to work full time and buy a home, balanced budgets, not crazy inflation, groceries that we can all afford to eat healthy food. Okay, let's go back.
Where Canadians used to respect each other no matter what,
Yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.